My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey folks, welcome back. Today, zooming in from Richmond, Virginia, Felicia Sanders is an experienced real estate investor. She's also a realtor, and she's doing really well with Padsplit. And unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years, you've probably heard about Padsplit, but you might not be quite sure what it is, how it works, how it benefits the tenants that you're helping, how it benefits you as a real estate investor. And the good news is you can do really well and do good at the same time by providing Padsplit rental opportunities for tenants. So Felicia is going to be telling us all about that. Felicia, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So give us a big picture overview as of September 2024. What does your real estate investing business look like? What kind of properties do you own? Where are they? How many of them are there? That kind of stuff. Give us a snapshot, please.
Yeah, sure. So I started out last year. I started investing last year. I am a part of Sub 2, and I'm also a getter. And I start purchasing Sub 2 properties out of state. I currently live in Richmond, Virginia, but I was looking for a buy and hold property using Sub 2, especially with this high interest rates. So currently I own 3 properties out of state, mostly in Florida and Texas. I just released one of them in Texas, which was one of the Padsplit, and I can talk about it later. But so now my main goal is I built my portfolio in Richmond, Virginia, and I currently have 4 Padsplit properties in Richmond.
So 4 in Richmond and 2 in Florida is what, Texas?
One in Florida and one in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay,
Yes.
so 2 out of state and 4 in Virginia, and they're all Padsplit properties?
So no, they're not. So the one out of state, I decided to release my only Padsplit because there's just a lot of maintenance that I wouldn't be able to do in person. And that's another way why I strictly focus on building my portfolio of Padsplit in Richmond, Virginia, so I can self-manage
Manage
those
them.
properties.
Okay,
Yep.
very good.
Mhm.
So for people who are not familiar with Padsplit, can you give us a definition of what it is and kind of how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. Split is basically it's almost like an Airbnb, but for affordable housing for working professional. So they're basically a platform where you can list your properties, and they consider each room its own unit. So you can basically 10x your rental property. And even we were originally considering a midterm rental, but we decided to go with Split instead because we can get a lot more cash flow that way. And there is a bunch of checklists as a host that has to be met to make sure all the units are meeting a certain criteria. But what I really like about it is, they also have a stringent checklist of the type of membership, the type of members that they allow to be in the house. So they have to pass background checks. They're handling all the marketing if you're in the main market, and Richmond is one of the main markets that they promote. So it kind of relieve a lot of the upfront costs and time, and that helps me focus on being like what I love to do, which is basically on the real estate side and also the property management side. And the nice thing about them is they tend to be less damaging to the actual property because you're furnishing each room with certain things, and it allows you to be able to walk the property, walk through it, clean the property. It's really set by depending on how the host prefer to do it, but that's how I manage my property. And that way you can also maintain the condition of your rentals, and less damaging compared to like a long-term rental, for example.
Very good. So
Mhm.
how long do your typical, what do you call them? Guests? Do you call them tenants? What are they? Guests?
We call
Members?
them members.
Okay,
So yeah,
how long do
so
they typically stay in a unit? Is it very short term like Airbnb, or do they tend to be longer term stays?
Yes, great question. So the minimum is 30 days. And then from after they meet the minimum 30 days, then they can renew their membership week to week. Just based on what I'm seeing, if they like the property and they like the location, most of my tenants, or I guess members in this case, have been in the house since the inception, since day one. Very few of them actually decided to move. And if they do move, it's usually, because of an outside factor, like they got a new job or they got relocated to a different city. And even then, if you're a good host, typically they would ask you, hey, do you have another property at this town, for example. So that's actually a good way to, and that's another reason why I tend to self-manage my property, because if you don't, sometimes this little nuggets of gold are missed and you don't know what they like about your property and where they're headed to next.
Okay, very good. So they're 30-day minimum stay. A lot of your tenants have been there since day one. Who are these members? Who are these people that are renting your properties by the room typically?
Yes, so it would depends on the location. So, for example, the first one that I had in Richmond, it's 2 minutes away from the major hospital in Richmond. So a couple of them are travel nurses and they do yoga and they do a lot of like nice and they keep the property like so pristine. So that's the number one thing that I really like about them is they just go so-called go back to their home and they don't throw parties, they don't trash the property, they just go home and quietly maintain comfort level around the house. Another side of it is I think I have several people that are either like veterans or disabled even because the housing, I'm sure everybody's aware the housing is just very steep right now to afford a good
Mhm. Yeah,
location. So some of them are either like patient or maybe people who needs like long-term care close to the hospital. And some of them are people who work from home because pad split homes are furnished, fully furnished, and we provide them with like high speed 1 gig Wi-Fi. So a lot of those people love to work from home and they prefer to have this type of housing so that they don't have to manage the utilities and still maintaining those. Basically, it's like going to a Starbucks versus like working at your own house.
but they do live there.
They do live there. They do
Yeah,
live there, but they tend to work from home. And a lot of
yeah.
those people that do work from home, they tend to basically find a pad split unit that's a little bit bigger because they want to be there, most of
Yeah.
their, yeah. So they
So
don't
how
mind
many
paying
how
extra
many
for it.
bedrooms are typically in the kind of properties that you're looking for? How many members do you have in a house?
Yeah, so that's technically you can have infinite, but what I have found to be the sweet spot is between 5 to 6 members per single family home.
Hmm.
That's typically the sweet spot because you don't want to build too many rooms. And what I had seen and experienced myself have been, the more people, the more problems
Oh, no
sometimes
doubt. Yeah.
they will have with each other.
Hmm.
So the dynamic is something that you definitely have to take account for. Parking is another big one. Trash. So 5 to 6 unit per single family house is definitely the sweet spot. I'm testing one with a smaller unit. There's only 3 bedroom in it. Three, yeah. And I upcharge a little bit more for basically, more of like landscape, like more of a space that they
Space.
can have. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So for your larger properties, 5 or 6 bedrooms, uh, I would imagine everybody has to share bathrooms, or do some people have private bathrooms, other people share out, and then kitchens? Like, I'm just thinking logistics.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get 5 or 6 people using bathrooms and kitchens and laundry facilities without a lot of conflict?
Yeah, so great point. So I think the number one thing that I would consider, so my first pad split, right? We added 10, we converted a 4 bedroom house into 10, and I would never do that again. So that's what not to do. So even though that, the house might look, it has the enough square footage to convert into 10 bedroom, but I don't recommend that unless if you can control a little bit of the dynamics, which I'm sure as a host, you probably don't want to be in the middle of it. So to maintain the right amount of satisfaction. So each host, you get a score. Every week they get to rate your property if they choose to. What I had seen to work the best is if you have at least 2 to 3 bedroom to a 1 bath. That's more than that, you're gonna cause people to fight,
Yeah.
like you said, over space like that. The kitchen, it's a hit or miss because some people, most of them don't really cook. Some of them do cook, but it's more like a, kind of like easy peasy kind of thing, not like a full-blown
Microwave pizza or something like that, or yeah.
microwave. That brings up a really good next point because then you would want to put like, a good fridge in their room so that they
Mhm.
can self-manage their their food, whatever drinks that they want to have. Basically, the longer you can, the more you can make them feel comfortable, the longer they will stay. We actually kind of test this with one of our unit. We had 2 rooms that does not have mini fridge, and we see a lot more turnover for those rooms versus the one
Interesting.
that does have the mini fridge. They tend to last longer, and
They
they're
stay
less
longer.
likely to want to move because they have more stuff.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So
Hmm.
2 to 3 people per bathroom is a big tip. They don't tend to cook at home very much. So there's not much conflict over cooking space. What about laundry? Just do you typically have in-house laundry, or do they take their laundry out?
Yes, in-house laundry is definitely like, I think, a key main point. They would want to be able to use the laundry. I don't see them kind of like to be a big deal. I think having one in the unit is key, or I guess having one in the house is key. But you don't have to, you don't have to provide like multiple
Yeah,
washer and dryer
one's
like
good.
a
One
fridge
set's good.
would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that 10, the initial house that you put 10 bedrooms in, did you reconvert that back to fewer bedrooms, or is it still 10?
So that's actually the one that I released ownership because that was out of state.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was out of state. And to be honest, that was like my first pad split. And so there's a lot more lesson learned in my end, on
Yeah.
my end. And then I took that nuggets and then I kind of built my portfolio in Richmond. So I kind of like use like what not to do and
Yeah.
then use that for my own kind of like management. And I think with Padsplitting, you have to be careful with who you hire as your property manager. And if you can, like I said, if you do have the bandwidth to do it, at least in the beginning, try to self-manage it because a lot of things sometimes get lost when you're using a property manager,
So what do you
especially
typically
what
find
works
that you
over.
need to do for management of these pad split properties? What's your biggest job?
Okay, so the biggest job is like when you, first of all, when you do have a booking, I never do like an auto book, although you technically can, but I don't recommend that. I think there's 2 things because if you auto book, sometimes you can't filter, I do more filtering than just what
You
Split
want to
approve
meet
or
the person, you
decline.
want to check them out in person before you let
Yes,
them in your house. Got it.
exactly. And I want to make sure sometimes like the phone number that they use may not be the right phone number and all those. So you just kind of like get acclimated to like the type of person. And also some of the best members that I had actually had a poor rating in Split. So ratings are not everything. And sometimes they have a disagreement with previous members. And if you just take what Split rating says, it can be misleading if you don't try to hurt it from their side.
Mhm.
So, and then the second thing is when you do like another set of checks, it also kind of makes them feel like, hey, if you get an approval, they're more appreciative that you're actually approving me for staying. So
Mhm.
they tend to be more appreciative of that whole process and not
Okay.
like cancel it last minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So besides bringing new members into the house, what does management typically look like for you?
So yeah, so once I get a tenant in and basically do a couple of set interview with them and let's say they get approved, then what I typically do is as a host, I would make sure all the rooms are clean, sanitized, and I even clean basically the kitchen, the bathroom, basically all the shared spaces before
How
they
often?
move in.
How often do you have to clean
Usually
those?
use definitely before every moved in, but
Yeah.
definitely like once a month.
Mhm.
Again, it depends on the property. Some property needs more management than others. But in general, that's the cadence. we have to maintain the lawn. So typically a property manager, I would say, try to get to the property at least once or twice a month. But other than that, you basically just manage the portal, the management with each member. If there is a ticket submitted, I always want to take care of it at least to get a response in within 12 hours,
Mhm.
because that's very key. Because, if you don't respond right away, your member might feel like you're not taking them seriously and that issue may linger. So even if I don't, even if they submitted a ticket over Labor Day, for example, I still would move it to in progress. And then I would tell them directly, like, hey, we're doing everything we can. We're going to get there by A,
What are
B,
the
and
typical
C.
issues that you see coming up over and over again, Felicia?
Um, I think hot water is definitely one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Hot water. So I think if you are planning to do a pad split, I think it's great to invest in a bigger, either like hot
Really
water
big one.
heater,
Really. Yeah.
yeah, or even like a tankless water heater might be a good solution depending on, again, how many bedrooms you're planning on adding. Um, Temperature is another one. Is it too
Yeah.
hot? Is it too cold? So I
Yeah.
think,
Some people
just kind
like
of
it
like,
hot. Some people like it cold. There's usually
yeah.
one thermostat.
Right,
Okay. Yeah.
exactly. So I think that's also another thing that too, it's at my first like pad split in Richmond, I did not establish that at all. And I think that kind of cost a bunch of who changed the temperature, like who did that. So I learned my lesson really quickly, and I basically set a standard of like, okay, in the summertime, this is the temperature that every member kind of voted in, so they feel like every voice matters. And then in the winter, this is what you do. And if you do have variances, I need to know. Or they would have like a heated blanket and things like that to kind of help, kind of navigate through that time.
So are you able to lock the temperature so that people can't go in and change it? Is that how you handle that?
I almost did. I
Yeah.
almost did. And here's why I decided not to, because I think people don't like being monitored to that level.
Yeah.
They don't like having security camera in the house. I do put security camera outside the front door and back door just to basically maintain safety for my members.
Mhm.
But nothing in the house. And I also I basically kind of like use the, I guess, democracy system, in a way to like make sure they voted in, and then kind of like use an honor system to make sure everybody feels like, they're a part
They're
of
being
that
trusted.
system.
Yeah, that you trust.
Exactly. Yep.
Very, very interesting, Felicia.
Yeah.
So what would you say is for you, for your market, what is like the ideal kind of property that you're looking for to turn into a pad split property? How many bedrooms and bath is kind of like
hmm
ideal for this? And then how many more do you add?
So that's a great question. I would say instead of focusing on the number of bedrooms, bathroom, although that can help with your renovation costs, I usually try to focus first of all on location. I think some of them do not have access to a car, so I
Right.
think,
Public transit. Yeah.
yes, public transportation, being near bus stops, walking distance to um restaurants and stuff like that definitely helps. Grubhub, like, grocery drop off, these are the markets for them, right?
Yeah.
Some of them actually work for DoorDash, and so a lot of these people, they want convenience.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to find a place that's in this location. The second thing I would say is the square footage of the house. So I like to, if I don't know if all the nationally we have this, but like
Yeah,
a
don't worry. Just
tri-level
I'm
split
asking your
homes.
specific situation. What do you look for?
Yeah. So like a split level homes, I think would be amazing because you kind of have that segregation of level to make to still feel like you're in, you still have some sort of privacy, but in a way you can convert the living room into its own unit, and then you can convert like maybe the second living room into the additional bedrooms. You put a closet in. That's what we did. That's what I did with mine. And then the dining room, sometimes, houses with like formal dining room, that's just kind of like collecting dust, until the next Thanksgiving dinner. That's the
Yeah.
kind of room that you can convert, so to speak, into like a money producing space. The other thing too, if you have a house that does not have a lot of bathroom, I would say try to move some of the utility. You mentioned washer and dryer earlier. So like one of the things that I did with mine, I moved the washer and dryer utility room into one of the bathroom and put a stackable on it so that it's like very it's still functional, but then that utility room or exercise room or whatever,
Yeah.
we convert that into an additional bedroom and then add a closet, and that is, that's been full since day one as well.
Very cool. So how many
Yeah.
square feet are you kind of shooting for or trying to get in a house that you're looking to buy? What's ideal for you?
Yeah, so I think ideally you would want to purchase something like in the 1500 plus.
Yeah.
I think 1800 would be ideal so that you can have a little bit more wiggle room to
And more or less, how many units can you
section.
fit into a 1,800 square foot property? How many?
Six. You can put
Six.
six. Yeah, and currently I'm converting one of the house. I'm in the middle of renovating one right now, and it's 1600, and I was able to convert that into six bedroom comfortably.
Nice.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
because
So
yeah,
compare
it
and
just depends on the
contrast.
layout.
Yeah, for sure. Compare and
Hmm.
contrast. Like if you kept that house as a normal 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom house, what would that rent for? And what does it rent for as a pad split when you've got 6 units in it?
Yes, that's a great question. So, again, it depends on the location, but assuming the location is great, right? The typical house in Richmond, long-term rental usually range between maybe upper 1800 depending on how nice it is. 2000 is probably kind of like 2000 to 2500 is what I've seen to be kind of like the
So let's
average
say
range for rentals.
$2,000. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. 22.
$2000, let's say, for a long-term rental. With Pad Split, you can bring in gross if it's all full within like 6,000, like $1,000 a room.
That's about what you're renting for. So yeah, that's
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
huge. That's a huge difference there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
Hmm.
Felicia, this has been fascinating. Where do you see yourself taking your business in the next year, year and a half? Where do you want to be focusing on? You want to keep focusing on the Richmond market? Do you want to spread out? What do things look like for you?
Yeah, I think throughout my journey, I realize I care about my members. I care about the experience that they have, and to me, they're not just tenants or members. So I would love to actually build not only a portfolio in real estate, but basically affordable housing in the Richmond market area to help these, whether it's young people, whether they're in transition in their life, to kind of get them into that next step, whatever that next step is in their life. Everybody kind of like goes through different things in life at different moments, and I feel like that's my mission in life, and that's my calling, to use something as simple as housing to be able to get them to whatever they need next. And so I'm kind of like doing that to my realty business, and then helping people to kind of get to their next home. But I'm also wanting to expand my portfolio in Pad Split. Basically affordable housing. It doesn't have to be specifically Pad Split, but Pad Split makes sense because of the high interest rate at the moment. And then I just want to continue doing that, renovating it, doing the burr strategy if it makes sense. If it's creative, I would love to basically get into it, with less money, and then add more bedrooms and then convert it that way as well.
Very good. Felicia, if people want to
Mhm.
reach out and find out more about you, what should they do?
Yeah, they can reach out by email. Probably is the best. Is Felicia Me, FELICIAME at yahoo.com. Or you can find me on Facebook, although I'm hardly on Facebook, but it's under my name, Felicia Sanders, as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights and congratulations on all that you've done in a pretty short period of time. You've got a good business going, Felicia.
Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, take care, and we will see you on the next episode. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.